Welcome to day 124 on the trail. We have three readings for today from John chapter 8, verses 31 through 59, Numbers 33, verses 1 through 49, and 1 Maccabees chapter 4, verses 36 through 61. In 1 Maccabees chapter 4, after defeating the armies of Lysias, Judas turned his attention to restoring the temple which had fallen into disrepair and had been desecrated by the forces of Antiochus IV. According to 1 Maccabees chapter 4, beginning in verse 52, early in the morning, on the 25th day of the ninth month, which is the month of Kislev, in the 148th year, they rose and offered sacrifice, as the law directs, on the new altar of burnt offering that they had built. At the very season, and on the very day that the Gentiles had profaned it, it was dedicated with songs, and harps, and lutes, and cymbals. All the people fell on their faces and worshipped and blessed heaven, who had prospered them. So they celebrated the dedication of the altar for 8 days, and joyfully offered burnt offerings. They offered a sacrifice of well-being and a thanksgiving offering. This restoration, described in 1 Maccabees, forms the historical background for the celebration of Hanukkah, which occurred on the 14th of December in 165 BC. According to the Babylonian Talmud, after the Maccabees rededicated the second temple following its desecration by the Seleucids, there was only enough purified oil to light the temple menorah for 1 day. Miraculously, the oil lasted for 8 days. The celebration of Hanukkah centers around this very miracle. However, the order of the lighting of the candles is disputed. In the Talmud, Rabbi Hillel argues that a candle should be added each day for the 8 days. For Hillel, the increasing number of candles represents the movement toward holiness. Rabbi Shammai, however, argues that the number of candles should be decreased each day to represent the declining state of the nations. Now, after the lights of Hanukkah are kindled, the following traditional hymn is sung or recited. We kindle these lights to commemorate the saving acts, miracles, and wonders which you have performed for our forefathers, in those days, at this time, through your holy priests. Throughout the 8 days of Hanukkah, these lights are sacred, and we are not permitted to make use of them, but only to look at them, in order to offer thanks and praise to your great name for your miracles, for your wonders, and for your salvations. Since work was not allowed to be performed by the light of the Hanukkah candles, participants instead enjoyed games, riddles, and other pastimes during the holiday. In the New Testament, Hanukkah is mentioned in John chapter 10, verse 22 as the Feast of Dedication. Today we conclude the 8th chapter of John's Gospel with some very powerful words from Jesus. Beginning in verse 31. Then Jesus said to the Jews who had believed in him, "If you continue in my word, you are truly my disciples, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." First, notice that the followers of Jesus are to remain in his word. The emphasis here in the Greek text is to not only listen to the words of Christ, but to live by them. As we have discussed previously, we are not simply to believe in Jesus and his teachings, his words, but we are to faithfully entrust our entire lives to him and his word. The words of Jesus and our life with him becomes the lens by which we see the entire world and the central purpose which defines our days. This truth, that Jesus is the very Son of God, who was sent by his Father for the salvation of the world, is the truth that sets us free. Now, as we see in the misunderstanding of the Jewish people who were listening to Jesus that day, this freedom that Jesus offers is not freedom from an external oppressor, but freedom from an internal one, our own slavery to sin. And this freedom is not just freedom from something, that is sin, but freedom for something. Freedom to become part of God's family as sons and daughters. So to become members of God's household, citizens of his kingdom, is the greatest expression of freedom that we can hope to experience. As adopted sons and daughters of God, there is no authority, ruler, or government on the earth that can truly oppress us. There is no power greater than that of our adopted Father. In this truth, we are truly free. The second powerful statement from Jesus is found in John chapter 8, beginning in verse 58, when they questioned Jesus about knowing Abraham. Jesus said to them, "Very truly I tell you, before Abraham was, I am." So they picked up stones to throw at him, but Jesus hid himself and went out of the temple. Once again, Jesus uses the Greek phrase ego eimi, which connects him directly to God and the name Yahweh. However, this is not just a statement of who Jesus is, that he is indeed one with God the Father, but this also carries the faithful promise of God's continuing presence with his people. In this divine name, Yahweh, God promised Moses at the burning bush that he would be with Moses when he confronted Pharaoh and rescued God's people. In this name, Yahweh, God defines himself by his presence and faithfulness. God literally says, "I will be with you." So Jesus too, in ego eimi, I am, is promising to be with us. And this is the definition of salvation: to find true life in the continuing presence of Jesus, both now and into eternity. When Jesus clearly and powerfully identifies himself with God by using the divine name, the Jews respond to what they viewed as blasphemy by attempting to hurl stones at Jesus. However, Jesus leaves the temple and withdraws. Augustine offered this commentary on the attack upon Jesus. As man, he flees from the stones. But woe to those from whose hearts of stone God flees. Thank you for joining us today. Until next time, stay on the trail.